Hi, it's Sammy, and I am calling all fluffy bunnies. I have heard that term throughout the years, and it's something that going through like a YouTube hole that I saw a couple years ago, a bunch of videos on the topic, and people just discussing how they feel about the term, who is a fluffy bunny? And what that kind of means, because going through those videos it seems like the interpretation varies quite a bit, um, but it seems like the general consensus on the fluffy bunny, that you guys would enjoy, the little queen of coins with her bunny. This isn't quite the, I would say, fluffy bunny kind of style, of a tarot deck called Joy de Vive or something like that. So the fluffy bunny archetype is somebody who maybe has read their first book. They've bought like 10 pentacle necklaces. They're looking, like they just came out of Ren Fair. So in the spirit of that, I decided to put on, I guess, um my most fluffy bunny type shirt. It's really velvety. It's fun. um, and put on excess, necklaces for the occasion. So it seems like there's a style thing. There's maybe an inexperience thing going on with this term, but that is kind of, oh, and if somebody, doesn't want to, like, I guess they're not overtly or like showing you that they're into, I guess, the dark stuff or the gray, the ambiguity, or like the deeper levels of witchcraft and the craft. Um, sort of they're like surface people. But the term gets thrown about quite a bit, and it gets, I guess, Silver Raven Wolf is like the queen, I guess, of this term for a lot of people. Which, don't get me wrong, like she has written some books that, like, I guess either it's just due to like the fact that every one of her books has like 40 like craft topics that go across traditions, so they don't really get into much depth. She writes at sort of a high school grade reading level. Her audience is, in a lot of ways, teenagers, a lot of, young them, teenagers in a lot of cases, and she kind of is, the archetype for this, which I always find interesting because while, like, yes, you can point out a lot of problems with her text, she is somebody who's been around the block, so to speak, quite a bit in the community. She does have like a long experience. Yeah, like, and it seems like if you look at her stuff, yeah, maybe it's regurgitating what she's read other places. Maybe you can be suspect about her credentials or whatever. But she's not inexperienced. And honestly, if you've ever been to any pagan event or whatever in the 90s, like, I mean, that's just kind of how people dressed in the 90s in general. There's a lot of accessories, you might have interesting textures, you know, the craft, people like, oh, they like to dress like they're from the craft. Well, everybody did. It was the 90s. That's just how people dressed. Um, so I find this term very interesting because for me, it's not that I I'm like, oh no, someone's done a hex, or the worst person ever. Oh, I never have anything to do with blood in my practice or anything like that. I just find it, you know, for me, kind of what I am actually seeking in this work is fluffy bunny stuff. Like, this is on purpose for me because my day to day job is highly stressful, and it is full of emotional labor. So I work with people who've experienced trauma, of all ages in a lot of cases, because I move between different community centers. So I'm working with people who are homeless. I'm dealing with people who are survivors of assault, of like neglect as teenagers, incarceration. Like, I deal with like people who have seen shit. And just working there, and having to navigate as a staff member and everything, like, I've experienced things. Like I have held space with people with a lot of trauma. So it's not like my practice has never been gray. It's not like it hasn't been ever gone to like a dark place. Because honestly, when I'm doing shadow work and things like that, for me, going through my own trauma, going through and trying to, cleanse myself of the trauma that I am getting contact with, it can go there. But, it's not like everything is positivity in my life and I'm just like, giving crystals to my clients, but for me, I need to cleanse that. When I come to my, you know, altar or my sacred space or I'm doing my work, like I want to come out feeling lighter, and it can go through dark places, because that might be what I'm processing. I have said before how at this point I don't have a whole lot of interest in external control over others, not so much from an ethical place, because after you do social work for long enough, you do really realize that, well, some people deserve it. Um, and I am not a Wiccan, so the Wiccan read, while I feel like it is a good list of suggestions for one's life, it's not my creed. So I don't come it from like, that kind of place. But for me, I want to leave lighter. I want to leave that darkness behind. I want to gain positivity. Like, I deal with like human demons and social ills every day. So I don't want to summon anything or communicate with that. I'm dealing with too much in the mundane realm to like want to have, where I am in ritual space, in sacred space, you know, really get too heavy. And I don't know about you, maybe like I don't give myself enough credit, but in a lot of ways, I don't really think I should have any control over other people. I just really don't. Um, like I'm like all right as a human being, but my God, I should not be the decision maker. And if someone's going to fall in love with somebody else, if somebody deserves a retribution, I am, that's not my bag. I don't feel like I have, it's not even like the moral authority. I get like regret when I buy things. I've gotten regret off of choosing like email addresses. I don't even have a tattoo because I'm worried that I would get something like stupid where a week later I'd be like, ah, fuck balls, this is on me for life. Um, so that's a personal thing. I feel like there's a lot of people who have very good judgment. You know, um, so I can't really pass judgment because I also don't know what their practice is like. I don't know what they're actually doing. I don't know the situation. I also don't know the effectiveness. Um, because a lot of what my work is trying to get myself to where I have a lot of not like just emotional control, but emotional regulation. Um, you know, focusing on building my concentration, visualization, working on my own personal goals and things like that. But dealing with, my own sort of, I guess, baggage. Like, I'd be worried, honestly, if I did something to affect somebody else or to create whatever, insert high level. This is a thing that the ultra cool kids do. Um, that could go really scattershot pretty easily. At least in my opinion. Just for where my emotional state is sometimes. And I would think that there's other people that do have times where it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna mess with all that. Um, So I don't I watching all those other videos, a lot of people were really defensive. I feel like because most people who come to this, and I mean to the point where they're making YouTube videos and stuff like that, and they have like, you know, they're really putting some concentration into it. It's dismissive, and I'm throwing this out there as an observation, but I've noticed that it gets thrown at women quite a bit, especially young women, and it also gets thrown to men who are just, I guess, not like going like hardcore, or like, they have some like positivity and they're like working through stuff. It gets thrown at them too, in like an interesting fashion where it's like, oh, well, if you're not like in this to, I don't even know what it is sometimes because the descriptions are so arbitrary and different people mean different things that most of the time it seems like the internal message is that this person, this fluffy bunny, is making us look less legitimate, which I don't know. I guess for me, because I am like a loner with what I do in a lot of ways, I guess with the exception of these videos, for me, it doesn't matter what, like, Johnny down the road, if he's all about, like, using crystals to cleanse his chakras and, charging his kale smoothie, you know, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe when some people might judge him at events for being this way, maybe they don't realize he's doing this because maybe he's suffering from PTSD and this is how he's bringing that sort of balance or whatever into his life. Also, you don't know if maybe behind closed doors he's like, balls to the wall, getting like some intense shit done. You don't know that kind of thing either. It could be, it's usually not those sort of extremes, but you never really know. But the undercurrent is almost like these people make us look bad somehow, which I'm like, to who? Who are we trying to impress? Are we witches? Or like, is this like a congregation that needs to keep up appearances? For fuck's sake, let people like have some joy. It's like the fluffy bunny thing reminds me of how like people who bag on folks who like something new or popular, like they like Pokemon Go or they like pumpkin pie spice, or maybe they have a horse folder as an adult, or they're really into something, like fantasy football or something, and they got that to that sort of geek level. It's like, shame on you for taking some enjoyment out of this. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are people who can be insufferable, and they can go the gamut from, any tradition or path, or really just in general. There's just insufferable people in this world, but but really, is it that bad that like fluffy bunny types like a lot of jewelry, they like positive thinking, and like they're still learning, but like, you know, they're going with it. Even for the folks who are like appearances. Oh, they're just doing this for appearances. Well, why the fuck not? This shit is cool. Like, come on. Like, you can have fun with your craft. It's just because you're doing something that's intensely personal, it doesn't stop being serious and heavy or whatever, like, you're going for it. It doesn't stop being that way because, like, the soccer mom across the road has decided to jump on the bandwagon after, seeing a essential oils infomercial or something. Who knows? Um, it maybe it seems like the term for some people has like died down, but I just find it interesting that for witchcraft, which is something where most of the traditions that we have nowadays is just the best practices, the most useful things that survived, like random oral traditions all over the globe. There's not a rhyme or reason. In my opinion, there was never like a widespread ancient tradition that had codified rules that if only we found them and these goddamn hippies, stopped having a drum circle, we'd be able to really unlock, the gates of the blah 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 blah. All this stuff is something where people had these superstitions, had these intents, had these tools, had this mythology, and put it all together in ways that made sense. And it's, yes, there's long standing traditions from different cultures, from different regions, that maybe they've blended together in a cool way or whatever. There's a closed tradition or they're an established religion or whatever you have. They're all, I don't want to say like made up by people, but essentially, whatever inspiration has been given, whatever source you believe that comes from, that gave people the understanding and knowledge and guided them on these experiments that led to the different traditions that we have today that are ever evolving. Whatever you call that, it was still interpreted by a dude or a lady or a non binary person or whatever, they had in like 20,000 BC or in 1700s Louisiana or what have you. It doesn't matter if it's the Council of Nicaea figuring out, what's going to be in the Bible, or it's Gerald Gardner in England, putting together established traditions and superstitions and folklore and just, all that late Victorian, early 20th century secret society occultist stuff together into Wicca. Um, it all kind of comes down the line to some person just being like, well, this worked for me, so I'm going to tell my neighbor about this herb, and I don't know, maybe you should do it under a full moon. That's how this stuff starts. So yeah, some people like can be over enthusiastic or they're young or they're just rubbing you the wrong way because they haven't learned enough. But keep in mind, some people just want that positivity. Some people are going for it. So while a lot of people are insulted by the fluffy bunny term, for me, I don't know. It seems it's adorable. So I guess I don't mind if somebody calls me Fluffy Bunny. I guess it's, yeah, it might be in a dismissive way or something like that. But I mean, that's what I'm going for, buddy. So spot on. Though, I don't know. One person's fluffy bunny is another person's elder. So always keep in mind that we're all learning. So when you're pointing at somebody else saying they're a fluffy bunny, which admittedly I did in high school when I was beginning, and I felt like, since I had, read a number of books and I had gone not just specifically in the topic, but getting context and mythology and putting together original resources and, really like being like, yes, I have done this. Pointing out other people for being fluffy bunnies. Keep in mind there's probably another person in whatever circle, chat room, Facebook message who is probably chuckling to themselves thinking like, "Aw, the bunnies are fighting each other." So, I guess in conclusion, I feel like if you are fluffy, raise your flag. Be happy that you are a fluffy person. Admittedly, don't turn around and be a hypocrite. And for people who, are more gray or shadowy or however they're working, however they're processing their life and working on their perception changes, feeling their intentions, practicing their religion or craft, don't turn around and just be like, well, you're wrong because of blah, 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 blah. And be like, well, I'm just more ethical than you. Yada, yada, yada. Because you never know. Maybe they are very dark. Maybe they are very serious about their craft. Maybe they're like heavy and intense, but it could be most of the time they're going for balance as well. Don't get me wrong, I've known people who have like hexed for some reasons where I would question their perception of the situation and why they're doing it. But some people, like, they are doing a balancing act, you know? So you never really know. So keep that in mind. I guess that's like, sort of with anything in the world. But I always think it's kind of funny when witches do that because it's like, okay, what standards are we going by? Because last time I checked, are we have no grand sources or messiah or anything like that to really be like, well, this is the right and the wrong way. So at the end of the day, if you are fluffy, if I guess you're spiky, I guess that'd be the opposite. You're a spiky bunny, or a hedgehog. Um, Go on, do your thing, but keep in mind when you decide to like say, fluffy bunny, say what you really kind of mean. Oh, you're too positive. You look like some sort of fortune teller Halloween costume. Or just keep scrolling by their over enthusiastic blog post or their Facebook status update. And if you do feel like they're like, this is a wrong thing, use it as a teachable moment. Don't decide that, oh, well, this person is the old thing from Rugrats. If you remember when Angelica, keeps telling them, if you have to ask, you'll never know. Don't be that guy. Everybody was starting out. Everybody wanted to like get some more information. And especially when like it's directed at like younger teens, it's like good Christ. Like let them enjoy what they're doing. Let them have a good time. And also, maybe it's better that like, some like teenager who just started out isn't like going and getting like parts of animals or messing with blood or like, trying to take on more than they can chew. Let them play. So if you have any commentary on the fluffy bunny phenomenon, if you have any, thoughts, feelings, emotions, concerns, that you want to share, comment, hit me up, let me know. Thanks.